Let's talk about Ireland. Obviously, it's a massive game against Canada. The way the results have gone so far, it would suggest that this is going to be a tight game, and that we're staring down the barrel of two very tight games. Sue Ronan is with us. Sue, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, guys. How are we keeping?
The 0-0 draw between Canada and Nigeria last night, not last night, earlier in the week. What does that suggest about the game that we're going to see tomorrow, and even the game that we're going to see against Nigeria at the end?
Well, it shows, I think, what we knew all along, that the group is going to be very, very tight. I think I said it from the very beginning. I did fancy us to come out, but I still fancy us to potentially come out of the group. But I think we knew there was going to be very, very tight results amongst the four teams, and that's been the case so far. Canada seem to have had a slow start, but Nigeria, we can't forget, they're a very, very good team. We mentioned it. They've qualified from the CAF Confederation for, I think, almost every World Cup. They're very experienced. They're very fit. They're very physical. Canada, obviously Olympic champions, are also a very good team. So, yeah, they had a chance to win the game. They missed a penalty. Sinclair, who you'd normally put your house on to score, I think she scored nearly 150 goals for her country. Christine Sinclair, she missed it. It was actually quite a weak penalty, I think. But yeah, I think it's going to be another tight game for us tomorrow, and I think we're still well in this group. And I suppose that draw has really brought us back into it following our defeat in the opening game.
The breaking news this morning is that the Philippines have beaten New Zealand 1-0. So obviously New Zealand got the tournament off to a flyer when they beat Norway by 1-0, and now they've lost. So we are seeing topsy-turvy results. We are seeing teams who we thought would be pushovers, like Haiti, for example, put it up to England over the course of the 90 minutes in that one. So no one's taken anything for granted. In terms of the quality of the performance that Ireland put in, as the dust has settled on the Australia game, how well did we do?
I think we did very well. We started off, we were in a compact low block, which we knew we would be early on. We wanted to frustrate Australia. We knew they were going to have much more possession than us. We knew where their danger areas were, which were down the flanks. I mean, it was a real blessing in disguise for us that Sam Kerr was injured, and obviously you don't want to wish anyone an injury, but of course that was a bit of good luck for us, as she wasn't playing, one of the top strikers in the world. So that was one less danger to worry about. So I think their biggest threat came from the wingers. Their two wingers are very good. Vine, I think, was on the left, and Rasso on the right, and the fullback supporting them, trying to create overloads or trying to create 1v1s. And I think apart from a couple of, maybe a couple of dodgy moments early in the game, I think we were quite comfortable. We frustrated them. They were restricted to shots from distance. I don't think Courtney Brosnan had a shot to save in the first half. And then unfortunately we were looking to try and, I suppose, nick a goal on the break. I think we didn't get forward in numbers enough in that first half. Anytime we did manage to get the ball forward, Caruso was isolated, or Shiva was isolated, or a couple of times you saw McCabe making runs forward, and just wasn't working out for us. And then unfortunately you have the silly penalty in the second half, and then all of a sudden you're chasing the game, and you have to really look at now, well, what can we do to get back into this game? And I think Australia's backs were up for a few minutes, obviously, after they scored. But I think after that, then the last 20 minutes, we sort of owned the game. And you wonder then, could we have got at them maybe a little bit earlier? I think the subs made a huge difference. I think Abbie Larkin was tremendous when she came on, and she was fearless, as you'd expect from a young one, but she's got such an amount of skill as well. And we created 2 or 3 really good chances on another day we could have scored. So, I think we did well. I think the fact that everyone was disappointed that we didn't get something from the game shows that we did well. And Australia are a very good team. They're not one of the top 5 or 6 in the world that we mentioned before, but they're still very, very good and very experienced, and have been at every World Cup or most World Cups to date, where obviously this is our first.
Would you expect Abbie Larkin to start tomorrow, Sue, given, I guess, well, certainly the papers seem to be hinting it's on the cards, but obviously I guess for an 18-year-old from the start in a World Cup game is a little bit more daunting, I guess, than coming off the bench?
Yeah, I don't think Vera will start her, to to be honest. I'd like to see her start, but I don't think Vera will start her. I think maybe she'll spring her from the bench again if we need her, or maybe whether, at some point to change it up or to put on fresh legs. She is fearless, but don't forget, we're playing an opponent now who's a level up again. Like, Canada are a stronger opponent than Australia. Some of the defensive players they have in that team are playing in the top teams in the world. They're excellent. So I'd be surprised if Vera does start her. If she changes it up much, we all know she tends to go with the same players and the same shape. But certainly I'd like to see us get at Canada a little bit more. I mean, we can't be gung-ho, of course, and we have to keep it tight, and, we can't be naive either and think that we can take the game to them. But I think we need to pick our moments, and maybe, every so often you're going to go at them, and you're getting one or two players, more in attacking positions, like our two wing-backs, for example. There has to be moments when they can maybe attack and try to support the front players, because that was missing last week, and especially in that first half.
Lucy Quinn, another option too. I guess Marissa Shiva, the player who maybe didn't have the best of games against Australia. It was tough for her out there.
Yeah, it was tough for her. I also didn't think Carusa had the best of games, and she has done well up front. And again, it's a difficult role. She's up there, balls were coming to her. She probably had 2 or 3 defenders around her. She'd no options, and it wasn't really sticking when it was going up to her. Marissa Shiva, didn't have the best of games either. There was 1 or 2. Well, we did play well in general, and some of the players really were that 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 as you need. There was 1 or 2 who you'd expect maybe to be the 9s out of 10 that were probably only maybe about 7 or 8, so they can maybe give a little bit more as well. I think we can certainly get more out of Katie. I thought Denise was all over the pitch, but her passing wasn't as sharp as normal. Whether she was still carrying the effects of the injury or what, I don't know. But at times she was caught in possession, and you very, very seldom see Denise caught in possession. So I certainly think 1 or 2 of the more experienced players can probably even go up another level. I thought Niamh Fahey was tremendous. I thought the back 3 centre halves were excellent. I thought Farrelly, when she was on the pitch, was very good also. Heather Payne did well too. So yeah, I think, I definitely think there's more in us, and I think there's an opportunity to get something from this game tomorrow.
The back 3 and their lack of pace is something that Vera has spoken about why she wants to stick with the back 3 for now. And it's very pragmatic, and it's very honest in her assessment. You could say stereotypically Dutch if we were to indulge ourselves in a bit of profiling. Sometimes they're very blunt when they talk about football in Holland. It's their culture. Ours is like a little bit, maybe we have certain strengths they're like, nah, we're just not fast enough. And she might be right.
Perhaps, yeah. No, look, perhaps she is, and you do, when you're up against very fast and attacking players, you do have to have speed. But I think maybe if we do lack speed there, I think we've got great experience. You look at Niamh Fahey and the way she reads the game. I mean, she's been around the block. She might not have been at a World Cup or European Championships, but she's very, very good at reading the game. Likewise, Louise Quinn, again, mightn't be blessed with lots of pace, but is very strong, can read what's going on, can cover where it needs to cover, can maybe get in ahead of her attacker to win that ball. And then Megan then provides a bit of sweeping up, I guess. Personally, I'd like to see Megan in midfield. I really would. I think that would release Denise a little bit, maybe into a little bit more of an attacking role. She could sort of do that number 6 role. She could sort of sweep in front of the back, whether it's a back 5 or back 4 or whatever, but I'd certainly prefer to see her a little bit further up the pitch. But yeah, it is a back 5, very much a back 5, but I think in this game, we can turn it into a back 4 at any given moment and get one of those wing backs in a forward position, because both of them are well capable of getting up the pitch and indeed getting back if need be. So I think that's something that I'd certainly like to see. Jessie
Fleming, that we've mentioned this morning, Sue, like a lot of the creativity from Canada, by all accounts, seems to come through her. How is she best nullified? Is it Katie McCabe? I guess they're familiar with each other as rivals with Arsenal and Chelsea. Yeah. So is that a job for Katie?
She's a very good player, Jessie Fleming, and she didn't play the other day, I think, against Nigeria. She's excellent, and she's had an excellent couple of seasons with Chelsea. She tends to play on that right side, all right, so you're probably looking at maybe Katie getting into another battle again, and no better player to do that. So, yeah, look, I mean, we're just going to have to try to nullify her influence on the game, because she can be a big influence for Canada when she's on form, as she is for Chelsea. We're certainly not going to go man-to-man or woman-to-woman, so to speak, in a game. But obviously, you just have to be wary and try to nullify that threat that she has, or that creativity, because she definitely can make Canada tick.
They're not as quick maybe on the counter-attack. Some people suggest Canada as Australia perhaps were, but they still have attacking threats. I guess the Irish wing-backs were pinned in a lot against the Australians and didn't have much room. You'd hope that maybe that'll be slightly different, given the Canadians are a bit more laboured.
Yeah, they are, and they're an older team as well, probably, but they're definitely not as direct and down, and they don't use the wing play as much as the Australians do. So, from our point of view, I'd like to see our wing backs impose ourselves on it and give them something to think about. And as you say, don't get pinned in so much for all of the game. Of course, there's going to be times when they're going to have to be deep, but I think let's give Canada something to think about, and let's take the game to them at moments. Choose our moments. We can't do it, of course, for 90 minutes, and we'd be silly to try, because they are a very, very good team. But I definitely think there's a result in this one for us tomorrow. There has to be, or we're going home effectively. We have to get something. We definitely can't lose the game. Even a draw will keep us in it, but we definitely can't afford to lose this game.
There is a world in which we do 2-0 all draws in our next two games and assume that Australia beats the other teams by 2 goals and we go through without having scored. That was Gavin Comiskey was pointing that out today. It could be vaguely similar to Italia 90. We'd probably take it at this stage, but I think we can be a bit more ambitious, can't we? Like, there's no reason to fear anything that's left in the tournament from what we've seen so far.
Yeah, no, I agree. And when you look at some of the performances we put in against better teams in the last year, it shows that we have it in our locker to do it. I mean, look at the 2 games against USA. We didn't fear them. There was nothing at stake. There was nothing to lose. They were only friendly games. But we were so good in those games, especially that first game. Like, we totally outplayed them in the first half. And again, we've talked about it on this program. Because they're really a top team, they found a way to win. I think in the first game, wasn't it a speculative cross or something from one of the wings came in and eluded Courtney Brosnan, and then there was a penalty as well. So, and we actually scored a goal. We were unlucky that was disallowed. So the performance we put in against them, the performance we put in against Australia at home in the friendly, against Sweden away when we took the game to them, against Norway or Finland away when we had to win or wanted to win to put our marker down in the qualifying group, just shows that we actually can play, when we want to. So that's why I'm saying, let's look and try to do that. Or I'd love to see us try to do that for periods in the game. Let's give the Canadians something to worry about, and the Nigerians also, because we really have some good players and some good footballers, who can create and can show the best of themselves if that's the style of play that we're going to use.
You'd hope that's the legacy of the tournament, that actually they take incredible confidence about the fact that they're mixing it in a World Cup, top 32 teams in the world, and they don't look in any way out of place.
No, they don't. And you mentioned at the beginning there, I think, they've probably lost now. New Zealand were 1-0 down to the Philippines, and there's been some really tight results. Like Haiti really put it up to England. They were very, very lucky to get out of that game with the win. Twice taken penalty they needed. France couldn't beat... who were France playing? I can't remember now. They couldn't. Pardon me?
Jamaica,
that's right, yeah. And you had Bunny Shaw up front, who caused them huge amount of trouble. And there's been some games, some matches like that have been really, really close, and the top teams have found it difficult to get the breakthrough or to win. So the gap is definitely closing. And I know we often talk about rankings and teams ranked 50, their teams ranked 20. The team ranked 50 might be there by virtue of not having played games, but in actual fact, they're probably better than their actual ranking in their own confederation. So the gap is definitely closing. We don't look a bit out of place. let's hope now the legacy really is the start, that we now know how to qualify for major tournaments. We've got over that hump, and that we can continue to do so in the coming years.
That's the thing as well. So like we don't really have much to fear. We don't have a lot to fear against the Canadians. They are Olympic champions by rights, but as Colin was saying earlier, like some of the stats are in Canada wouldn't fill you full of fear. So they haven't scored more than once against the European team in the last 13 games or meetings. They've only won one of their last 6. That was a game against Brazil in February. So I mean, there are causes for optimism here, you'd imagine, for Ireland.
No, absolutely. And Canada are definitely a team you can get at. Of course, they're one of the top teams. They're still not in that league, the USA, the Germany, the France, as I call them, that, you know, they will find ways to win. Japan now, I've mentioned I fancy Japan all along. They've been very impressive in their win. They dispatched Zambia really, really well. They scored 5 goals. So they're not in that league. Of course, they're a very good team. They've qualified for lots of World Cups, but we can certainly get at them. I remember when I was coach, we played Canada in the Cyprus Cup, going back, 2015, 2016, and they were similarly, you know, a top team then, and we were even less ranked and probably very few professional players in the squad at the time. And it was one of the playoff games for maybe 7th or 8th or 5th and 6th, actually, I think it was, in the tournament. We came so close to beating them because we had no fear of them. And it took their manager at the time, with Megan Campbell taking her long throws, it took her the manager at the time to try and block her in his dugout, in his technical area when she was taking the throw-ins, because we were really hurting them so much. And we took the lead in that game, actually, and we unluckily lost 2-1, but we hadn't got any fear, you know. So I really feel we don't have fear against the Canadians, that we can get a result out of them.
So in terms of the legacy, right, there's watch parties in Dalymount Park, and there's hundreds of kids going, and I know from the WhatsApp groups of my kids' football that, like, there's been a surge in interest. You'd hope that we've learned some lessons from 40 years ago, 30 years ago, when we qualified for Italia 19. There was literally no legacy. There was no improvement in facilities. The surge of numbers, like, it's definitely the bit where the playing numbers surged, but we didn't quite cement that with an upswing in domestic fortunes. It feels a little bit like we're at least thinking about how to maximise an improvement in returns from the government and from facilities at the moment. What's your sense about somebody who kind of understands this whole thing and has seen firsthand for the last while how difficult it has been to get the game going? What do you hope is coming next? How well do you think we're doing or are prepared for it?
Well, you can see the surge there already with these watch parties and everything on social media, and just the following the team has now, and the fact that clubs are saying that they're inundated now, girls wanting to join. Traditional, what we would call male, you know, clubs, male dominated, or just traditional all male clubs are now catering for girls where they wouldn't have before. I certainly know it's still an issue around the country, facilities, and in many clubs around the country at grassroots level, the girls' team is still left till last on the weekend to get access to the pitch, or the girls' match might be the first one cancelled if there's an issue with weather, and they might play the boys' games off first. So you would certainly like to see that, you know, that type of thing not happen, and that more equality now in every club, that the girls are just as important as the boys, and the importance goes according to the level of the team. Whether that's the women's team are playing in the National League, they get more preference over the boys' team, is maybe playing in a junior league or whatever. But yeah, I think we definitely are in a better position to cater for the numbers now. I would like to think, I'd like to hope we are. I've always spoken then about that legacy. I'd really like to see our National League go professional at some point. Now we're a bit off that. I think we've just gone semi-professional this year, but I think we need to be careful there too. You know, I think it should be quality over quantity. There's no point having 12, 14 teams in a national league, or 12, 14 teams in underage national leagues, you know, and you're getting those big results, because you look at the WSL in England, I think, if they got 8 or 10 teams at the moment, but it's taken them like 12 years to get up to that level or that number. So it's not about just opening it up to anyone that wants wants to come in or that can achieve club licensing. I think we need to be looking at quality, because especially as most of our best players at the moment, our national team, they're all playing abroad. So, do we have that depth there? We want to create a really, really strong competitive league. So I think we need to be looking more about the quality over quantity there, and hopefully then a couple of years down the line we're looking at a more professional league. Last
question for you on this, and I didn't mean to bring this up today, but just I do wonder if there's a room for some centralised contracts for players. And I know it's very difficult so what club benefits? Is it the club with all the money? Is it the club with the rich owner? How do you work that out? It's very difficult. And does everybody have to get one, like back in the days of the basketball where everybody had an American? It's like everybody's allowed one centrally contracted player, but it would allow the FAI to have control of the players and make sure that they were full-time, and every club has one who maybe is a part-time player and a part-time football administrator or a coach or something. I think we just need to be a little bit creative about how we get there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And these are ideas that, I would have put forward many years ago because I saw it happening in other countries and it was working. And it was probably before there was professional leagues, to be fair. I know they did it in Holland initially when their national league started up first, going way back. And I think Vera would have been very much involved at the time. They literally placed the players they were on centralised contracts with the FA, and they placed the players. So you didn't have 10 at one club. And that's something that unfortunately we've seen happening in Ireland over the last number of years. And particularly at our underage, we've seen, I know Dave Connell gets frustrated. He often sees this is before the introduction of the under-19 league. You'd have some of the players from the underage squad who are really good enough to be playing at the top level, sitting on the bench, not getting game time. And that doesn't do anything for their own career or for the national teams. So it's something potentially to look at. In Holland, it's definitely easier to do because it definitely is a smaller country, and travel to and from, players can still live at home and travel to wherever they're playing. Whereas if you have a player from Donegal and you're placing her on a team in Dublin or in Cork, but she's still living or going to college in Donegal, that's probably a little bit more difficult. But I agree with you. We do need to be a little bit more creative and try to bring the competitiveness of that league up and look at trying to do that rather than just trying to make it bigger.
And look, if there was a transfer fee to come, then that would go to the FAI and that might help to pay for it over the years. So there's definitely, if there's a will, there's a way. Sue, great stuff. Thanks a million for joining us as ever.
All right, guys. Take care.